And Dr. Ramathuba joins us live now. Good evening to you, Premier, and thank you so much for your time. What a story. What a story indeed. What a journey. I mean, you've had a few days to take it all in. Let's talk about how you're finding your new role.
Of course, it's really challenging. Looking at the province that one it's currently leading, it's a province that it's predominantly more than 80% it's rural, and development in certain area is still a serious challenge. Unemployment it's very high here. We are in a situation where, while when you look at stats as the babies that are born in this province, fertility rate it's very high, as Statistician General Mr. Sengamaleke will always say. Unfortunately, when they turn 17 and 18, most of them will migrate out of the province because they will be looking for greener pastures. So we are coming to lead the province, which the good thing is that my predecessors, starting from Advocate Ramatlodi up to Premier Matawata, who appointed me, there is a lot of work that has been done. And in terms of policies, we don't even have to reinvent the wheel. The policies are there. What is really a mammoth task is to put up a team that will implement us, because we need to hit the ground running. We need to make sure that the manifesto of the ANC it's implemented, because once we implement that manifesto from priority number 1 of jobs and building industrialization because we've got natural resources. We are a province that is rich in terms of mineral, agricultural. We're doing well. Tourism, we can really be amongst the best in the world in terms of being a tourist destination. All we need is just to put everything together, all these ingredients in one baking pan, and then we can come up with a beautiful, nice, tasting cake,
so
if I'm to use that.
When it comes then to, as you say, you're hitting the ground running, there's the issue, of course, that you touched on, the issue of jobs, unemployment where you are, the numbers, for example, around 32%, but there's a great concern in another number, for example, which is around 13.9% of discouraged job seekers. How do you get these people to be encouraged then to even, start looking?
I think I always say, if we can really stop talking about percentage and start to talk about the numbers, that's when you see people being very serious. Maybe it's because I'm from a background where if you talk about 2% mortality rate, you will think it's fine. But if you talk about the numbers of people who died, it becomes a lot, and it tells you that you need to do something. Now, what we really need to do, as I've indicated, if you are, for instance, focusing on mining, it's a high time that we don't export everything, because yes, we are getting investors committing. For instance, our 2 investment conference, the first one, there was more than 209 billion, the second one 34 billion, which were committed. The question is, how do we then convert those commitments into jobs? And the only way is to make sure that as the state, we provide conducive environment, supporting those investors. If an investor wants to start mining and they have got a challenge of power supply, we must make sure we address that issue. If the problem is water, we should do that. If the problem is roads infrastructure or network infrastructure, we should be able to, so that they can start mining, because by starting to mine and production on its own start to create jobs. Then move to the second layer, where we can start small by getting a certain percentage of the minerals not be exported but remain for processing. Move on up to beneficiation. The same can be done in terms of agriculture, which is something that I was asking them even at the legislature, that we have got the largest producer of tomatoes in this country, which is ZZ2. Yes, he's creating jobs by producing tomato, but if we move towards the value chain of getting into tomato sauce, which we don't even have a single factory or industry that produces tomato sauce, more jobs get to be produced and more job people start to get in. Digitalization of our economy, we've got to move towards that, because it then spread and the market access of the markets having to have more access in a digitalized economy.
Yeah.
You will see that need to happen. I can't even start to talk about tourism, because I know this province. There are many areas that you yourself, if I ask you that in the Wembe district, we don't talk of big 5, we talk of big 6. You wouldn't know what is the 6th one. It's the biggest baobab tree in the world. We have not marketed it enough. If I tell you that we've got a rainy queen, Queen Mujaj, we've got to start telling our own story. The indigenous endangered species that are there in the Hoedspruit, like your cheetah. People can pay dollars and pounds just to come and see it. In that, we'll be able to create more and more jobs, and more people will start to have confidence, even those who are discouraged, because you are quite right. When you look at the expanded unemployment rate, it can reach up to more than 40%, but we need to really address and deal with that.
So, you know, when you speak about people, ahead of the elections, for example, there was one activist, Israel Nkuna, a ward committee representative at Matlati village in Giyani, for example, who wrote in the Daily Maverick expressing unhappiness about the number of communities, for example, like Kakala and Matlati, among others, who he says were threatening not to vote. But I would like to borrow from some of the things he was saying. He says, and I quote, "At the heart of this resistance lies neglect and unmet promises. These villages find themselves in the harsh grip of many challenges, like inadequate access to essential services such as clean water and basic sanitation." You know, while we talk about tourism, while we speak about, you know, the jobs and things that need to be done, how do communities like these also become part of, you know, the solution for you, because you need to ensure that they get services?
That's quite true, because besides the jobs that I'm talking about, the reason why I always prioritize jobs, because if you are working, the chances of you to get sick compared to somebody who is not working are slim. You can get your own house. You don't have to depend on SASSA. Therefore, you reduce social spending on when people are working. Now, there are others priorities. For instance, when we said we want to invest in our people, we are talking about this time around our provincial government must be empowered to can make intervention in our municipalities, which is where service delivery is at a world level, where you can get commitment of our people. You know, I was talking to some young graduates who shared with me, because I enjoy being around the young girls and boys who are graduates, who are seeking for jobs, because they've got all these ideas that we need. Some of them gave me this brilliant idea to say, you are complaining about an environment within a village where plastics are all over, empty tins, and we can have the local economy by recycling the recycling economy. For instance, get these young people who have given up to say, pick up all these plastic bottles, go, you have a centered area where when they bring them, you give them a stipend or something to keep themselves busy. And then you get an industry that you build, whether it's Giyani, in that Giyani area, you revive those industrial areas and then start to do. The people will now be forming part of the economy within that and being part of the solution rather than sitting at home. Secondly, the people, it's true, we said we want our people to get water as part of the investment to our people. It's very true. There's a challenge in the Giyani water project, which you will remember that the 6th administration, President Ramaphosa and Minister Senzo have been even to Giyani. We put systems in place to try to address, to say, you can't have Nandoni Dam full, but you don't have water in the running taps. The same goes to Diwop in Sekhukhune and also Flegbushelo dams. They're always full, but people in Sekhukhune do not have water. So those are the things that the Premier must make sure that they become the priorities, if it's jobs, and then if it's water provision, and of course the roads. You know, these are the 3 things that I can tell you are very burning when you look at our door-to-doors. In terms of all these things, including the roads, especially with the roads, you need to look into a situation where, unfortunately, as politicians, sometimes when people protest to say they want a road, we quickly sign a letter and commit that we will build the road this financial year, when we have not looked into the budget and what is available. What angered our people is because on the day when we said we would build the road and the road is not built, it becomes a problem and we are afraid to go and explain to them. So it's a question of get the people to participate in their democracy, in their livelihoods, by making sure that every community, you become transparent and you explain to say, in this particular year, financial year, this is what we'll be able to achieve. If there's any deviation, the communication must be done in advance. Then in that way, it will answer your question to say, how do you bring back the confidence of the people on their state? And lastly, you need three receipts in terms of dealing with this. There must be strong leadership. The leadership that is decisive, that is able to say, sometimes I will be hated by the people, but I know the results that I want. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. At the end of the day, when they see the results, they will be happy. Secondly, you need discipline amongst your team, that if we are disciplined and committed, we will do what is expected. And lastly, you need the political will to be able to drive. Policies are there, manifestos are there. All what we need is a team that will be able to drive those commitments.
All right, Premier, thank you so much for talking to us. And let's see then, you know, how your tenure then goes, as you say, transparency, service delivery, accountability, strong leadership, discipline, and political will. So these, of course, are some of, you know, the things that you say are quite important to you. And let's see then what the road ahead, you know, has in store for you. And hopefully we get to speak again. Thank you so much. Do appreciate your time. That was Dr. Phophi Ramathuba, the Limpopo Premier.